I nodded when my son told the judge I had dementia. I even lowered my eyes and let my hands tremble. Bandian. Because sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to let them think you've already lost. Leaned. The courtroom was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. My son, Daniel, stood straight back beside his attorney, his voice steady, compassionate, rehearsed. Tonda, my mother has been experiencing severe memory deterioration, he said gently. She's no longer capable of managing her financial or medical decisions. Then, the word mother lingered in the air like something fragile. I looked confused on purpose. And when the judge glanced at me, I blinked slowly, like I didn't understand where I was. But I understood everything, Gus, and what my son didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that I had been preparing for this day for 3 months. Demmed 3 months earlier, I had started misplacing things. At least, that's what Daniel believed. Lenger. He would find my reading glasses in the freezer, my keys inside the linen closet. Deemed. The television remote in the sugar jar. He looked concerned at first, then attentive, then calculating. Emilia, I noticed the shift long before he thought I did, because I wasn't forgetting. I was watching. Blam, the first real sign came the night he insisted on managing my medication. It's just easier, Mom, he said. You don't want to mix anything up. I let him take control. The next morning, my pills were slightly different. Same bottle. Different shade. That was the moment I stopped pretending I didn't see what was happening. Amiand. But I didn't confront him. I didn't accuse. Instead, I leaned into it. If he wanted a fragile mother, I would become one, and if he wanted to prove I was unfit, I would give him the performance of a lifetime. Land. Because the truth is, dementia doesn't happen overnight, and I knew something he didn't. I have a background in neuropsychology. Blend 30 years in research before retirement, he had forgotten that. Or maybe he assumed I had. Man, the irony almost made me smile. But I didn't smile, not then. Instead, I let my handwriting become shaky. And I let my speech slow. I repeated questions I already knew the answers to. And every time he thought he was gaining ground, I was documenting everything. And what Daniel didn't understand was this. Memory isn't just what you recall. It's what you record. And I was recording everything. The first time he brought up guardianship, I nearly laughed. But I didn't, because that's when I knew how far he was willing to go. Bang, Mom, he said softly one afternoon, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. I think it's time we talked about making things easier for you. You easier. That word always comes before something is taken. He slid a brochure toward me. Assisted living communities. Dimmed sunlight and staged photographs, smiling seniors playing chess, and behind all of it, paperwork, temporary guardianship, medical oversight, financial supervision. I let my eyes glaze over. Is that where I live now? I asked, pretending confusion. Benya, his expression tightened for half a second, then softened. No, Mom, not yet. This is just planning, fawning. Plamdius for my disappearance. That evening, I searched my room after he left. Inside the bathroom cabinet, tucked behind spare towels, I found something that made my pulse steady instead of spike. Demdia's second pill organizer, not mine. The labels had been peeled, but I recognized the imprint on one of the tablets. Temdia mild benzodiazepine, not enough to sedate, enough to fog, enough to slow cognition, enough to make someone appear unstable. Plan. That's when I understood. This wasn't concern, it was construction. He was building a case, and I decided to help him build it. The following week, I forgot to pay a bill. Mean that I left the stove burner on. I asked him what year it was. Every time he watched closely. Land. Every time he took notes, he didn't know I was taking notes too. In a locked drawer beneath my sewing table sat a small digital recorder. Every conversation, every suggestion, blamed every subtle push toward legal control. And I wasn't the only one listening. 2 days before the court filing, I visited a neurologist Daniel didn't know existed. Full evaluation, cognitive tests, imaging, binned results pristine. The doctor looked at me carefully and said, "Why are you here?" I answered honestly, bland. Because someone wants the world to believe I don't remember, and he helped me prepare. Affidavit, medical statement, time-stamped, men-sealed. The trap wasn't emotional, it was procedural, and Daniel never saw it forming. Jand, because he thought he had already won. The day of the hearing, he dressed me himself. Bammed. That was his first mistake. He chose a pale sweater, muted colors, something that made me look smaller. I let him button it, I let him guide my arm. I even stumbled slightly when we walked into the courthouse. Performance matters, and I had studied human behavior for decades. In the hallway, he leaned down and whispered, "In the hallway, this will help you. Mom, I promise." I looked up at him and asked, "Help me with what?" He swallowed. Dens. The judge listened carefully as his attorney presented documentation. Mistake payments, witness statements, episodes of confusion. Van Daniel's voice cracked at just the right moment. Brilliant. Palendrous. If I hadn't known him my entire life, I might have believed him too. Then the judge turned to me. Mises. Carter mutters. Carter, he said gently, do you understand why we're here today? I let the silence stretch. Then I looked at my hands, then around the room. I think, I said softly, my son believes I don't. A subtle shift in the room. Daniel stiffened. The judge leaned forward. And do you, Lumdeen? I lifted my gaze fully for the first time. Clear, steady. Yes, the air changed. You could feel it. Daniel's attorney quickly intervened. Your Honor, fluctuations in clarity are common in cognitive decline. Fluctuations, convenient. I reached into my purse slowly. Daniel's breath caught. From inside, I removed a sealed envelope. Lemmed as before any ruling, I said calmly. I would like this entered into record. The clerk approached, jammed. The envelope contained my neurologist's full evaluation, signed, Straft, dated 2 days prior. The judge read in silence. Ben Daniel's face drained of color, but that wasn't the worst part, because I wasn't finished. Your Honor, I continued, my voice firm now, I would also like permission to submit audio evidence. Daniel's head snapped toward me. Audio? Yes, audio. Because memory fades, but recordings don't. And in that moment, blanches. My son realized something terrifying. He wasn't the only one who had been preparing for court. And what he was about to hear would change everything. The recording began softly. Daniel's voice in my kitchen. Man, clear as daylight, she won't fight it, he said. She barely knows what day it is. A pause. And then another voice, his wife. Once guardianship is approved, we can liquidate the property before she notices. The courtroom didn't breathe. The judge didn't interrupt. The audio continued. The medication's subtle, Daniel added. It just keeps her foggy. There it was. Not dementia, design. Daniel shot up from his chair. Juwenja. This is taken out of context. Bummies. But context has a way of revealing itself when you let it play long enough. The recording continued. Dimmed. 2 more weeks, he said in another clip, and she'll sign anything. Baned. The silence afterward was louder than any objection. The judge removed his glasses slowly. Mr. Carter, he said, are you aware that administering medication without consent constitutes criminal behavior? You? Daniel looked at me. And for the first time that day, he wasn't confident. He was afraid. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't shaking. Janned. I wasn't confused. I was simply present. And present is powerful. The judge called for a recess. Offices stepped forward. Daniel tried to speak to me as they escorted him back. Mom, I was trying to protect... No, from... What? I asked quietly. He didn't answer, because he remembered. He remembered exactly what he'd done, and so did I. And weeks later, the house is quiet again, but not heavy, just honest. Guardianship denied, investigation ongoing. Into my estate placed in an irrevocable trust under independent oversight, not because I was weak, but because I was prepared. Daniel calls sometimes, from a different number each time. I don't answer, not because I forgot him, but because I remember everything. Damn, people assume age erases strength. It doesn't. It refines it. They assume softness means surrender. It doesn't. Well, it means strategy. The truth is simple. My son told the court I had dementia, but I remembered everything. And sometimes, remembering is the most dangerous weapon of all.